One of the first acts of the North Korean government after it was established in 1946 was land reform. Under the Land Reform Act, nearly 54% of cultivated land in private ownership was confiscated. All land holdings held under continuous tenancy or in excess of 5 HA 12.3 acres was also confiscated. By August 1958, all individual peasant farmers had been absorbed into the newly created collectives. Immediately after the completion of collectivization, a major program was launched to expand the scale of farming. The government considered that the prevailing size of collectives was too small to realize economies of scale, particularly for the use of farm machinery. Farm mechanization was regarded as one of the most powerful ways of transforming traditional farming into a modern system. Tractors. Following the Korean War, North Korea began supporting a policy of self-reliance, discouraging importation of outside technology if it could be produced domestically. This same government also championed the modernization of many industries, including the agricultural sector, which at this time was still using daft power for most tasks. To remedy this problem, the NK government began development of domestically produced agricultural tractor, one that could be mass-produced and distributed across the peninsula. The chosen name, Kolyma, refers to a mythical winged horse that connotes speed and agility in all tasks. The result was the ubiquitous Kolyma 28, a 28-horsepower twin-cylinder diesel-fueled wheel tractor. Based on an early Soviet prototype, this tractor would enter production in 1954 and continue with little change until the early 1980s. The Kolyma is rugged, simple, and can run on contaminated fuel, making it one of the few successful examples of early North Korean engineering. Specifications for the Kolyma are difficult to acquire, although it's known that the tractor utilizes a gear transmission and seems to have a live 540 RPM PTO. External hydraulic circuits are found occasionally, although most usually only in single-circuit operation. The rear lift is similar to a conventional 3-point, but differs in the design of its top-link system. The vast majority of operational Kolyma 28s have had makeshift cabs added over the years. Often constructed of wood or roofing metal, surprisingly, Kolymas sport a feature found on no other production tractor of the time: a leaf-sprung front suspension. Countless submodels of the Kolyma 28 were produced over its lifetime, including tracked versions for dozer work and crane-equipped designs for overhead lifting. Kolymas destined for rice paddy work were often outfitted with side biter, skeleton wheel extensions to assist in operation through deep waters. A large number of these tractors were reserved for military applications, although most have been rotated into the agricultural sector over the last few decades. A prototype successor to the Kolyma 28 was developed in the late 1980s, although it never saw production. This tractor was rather modern for the time, with mechanical front wheel assist and a sleek body design that resembled tractors found in other portions of Asia. North Korea's Kim Sung tractor plant could not handle a tractor as modern as the 2000, so it was decided to shutter new tractor assembly and begin a yearly reconditioning of a few hundred Kolymas to see distribution. These tractors can often be found on farms in tourist regions, sporting new paint jobs and fresh tires. The debut of these overhauled tractors in the spring is a large event with media coverage and visits by high-level government officials. Regardless, these few tractors are not adequate to meet the nationwide demand for new equipment. The North Korean government has received a handful of donated tractors over the last few years from sources in both North America and Europe, with a common example being the New Holland T880. Unfortunately, the current fuel infrastructure in North Korea is in such a state of disrepair that these tractors are often unable to handle the high rust particulate and water content found in typical farm diesel. Fuel oil in North Korea is transferred between different bulk tanks an average of 8 times before being used, with each transfer further increasing the risk of exposure to contamination. This poor quality fuel is not a problem for the rugged Kalimas, but late model tractors cannot operate under such conditions. For this reason, these modern tractors often spend more time under fuel system maintenance than in operation. Access to repair parts remains another massive roadblock to agricultural machinery modernization. Those same tractors that remain out of operation due to fuel system repairs often stay in that condition until parts can be sourced through alternative means such as gray imports or underground markets. No modern equipment company distributes parts in North Korea, and the NK government has no means to handle the complex needs of a 21st century tractor. Parts for the Kalima tractors are not immune to the scarcity either, with starter motor components being a good example. Replacement starters have become so hard to acquire that many farms simply park the tractors on a slope at the end of work and roll start them the next morning. Tires and engine oil are other scarce commodities, often leading to improper maintenance intervals on already stretched schedules. What about the food? North Korea is notorious for poor food management, which leads to common shortages and widespread malnutrition. Multiple international bodies attribute these shortages to inefficient agricultural practices, with unreliable and outdated mechanization being a major factor. An across-the-board modernization of tractors and equipment would be a major boost to production, but the North Korean government has few resources to accomplish this and has other priorities. Meanwhile, NK families procure roughly 33% of their food from underground markets outside of the government food distribution system. The main agricultural products of North Korea are rice, corn, potatoes, wheat, soybeans, pulses, beef, pork, eggs, fruits, and nuts. Barley, wheat, corn, soybeans, and grain, sorghums are extensively cultivated, especially in the uplands. Other crops include potatoes, pulses, cotton, tobacco, vegetables, fruits, and sweet potatoes. Cattle, pigs, and chickens are raised. The principal crops, according to the size of the yield in 2002, are rice, potatoes, corn, cabbages, apples, soybeans, pulses, and sweet potatoes. Other vegetables, fruits, and berries also make up important parts of the annual crop. North Korea has always been faced with food shortages, but since the mid-1990s, they've become more severe. The total cropland of about 2.2 million hectares is overwhelmingly planted with grains, of which rice accounted for 30.1% in 1989 to 1990. Official data on cropland distribution and agricultural production are scanty, and there are discrepancies in the methods of calculating the weight of rice, husked or unhusked. North Korea claims to have produced 10 million tons of grains in 1984. The grain output in 1989 was estimated at 12.04 million tons by the Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO) of the United Nations. In 1989, the output of the two most important crops, rice and corn, was estimated at 6.4 million tons and 3 million tons respectively. The output of potatoes was 2.05 million tons in 1989. Other important crops are wheat, barley, millet, sorghum, oats, and rye. Corn grows in most areas, except for parts of Yangang and North Hamgyong provinces. Barley and wheat are cultivated mostly in both Hwanghae provinces and in South Pyongan province. Rice is exported, but other grains such as wheat are imported. Pyongyang's goal is to increase the grain output to 15 million tons by farming in North Korea. Many farms still use primitive anchor-shaped iron plows pulled by cows or oxen. To plant rice, sometimes farmers use a strange contraption that looks like a cross between a bicycle and a harvester. Otherwise, much of the work is done by hand. Vans and loudspeakers in the fields blast martial music to encourage farmer laborers to work harder. During the planting season and the harvest, urban dwellers, soldiers, and school children are bused to agricultural areas to lend a hand. On small farms, there are piles of mulch with signs naming the work groups that collected it. Some farms lie fallow because they have no fertilizer. A big problem in the past has been hungry people digging up seeds and seed potatoes and eating them and not allowing the seeds to sprout into crops. North Korea has struggled to obtain tractor fuel for more than 2 decades, and because the country is largely urbanized, there's not much of a rural labor force to pick up the slack. That's why it's common to see housewives, college students, and workers brought in from the cities, along with the military units, to make up for the lack of mechanization at crucial times. There are many less tangible problems: state-controlled distribution, top-down planning, and a quota system that doesn't fully encourage innovation and individual effort. All these factors make North Korea's agricultural sector a very fragile ecosystem. Almost as soon as this season's rice was transplanted, the North Korean Central News Agency reported that tens of thousands of hectares of farmland had already been damaged by drought. It quoted Sok Ji-dong, a deputy director of the Ministry of Agriculture, as saying troops had been mobilized to mitigate the disaster. Some agricultural reforms in the early 2010s have provided two incentives for farmers to produce more. On paper at least, farmers are now supposed to be able to keep 30% of the rice they grow while giving 70% to the state, and can keep 10% of the vegetables they grow as well, in addition to what's planted in personal gardens around their homes.